with the library community, which is terrific. Yeah.
That's so essential. Yeah.
Yes. And they cover libraries all the time, and their book person from 12 to 2 often does with librarians. It's just fabulous.
I gotta check into this. That sounds great. That's what's cool about being a library worker. I get so many good like readers and listeners advisory tips. I'm just like, this is the life. Hmm. Um, Whenever you all are ready, I'm just loading up some links because I want to make sure I tell you all about grant opportunities too, for ALA conference. So
Right. Will you
if
put
I'm,
them in the chat?
is that okay? Like if my eyes are dancing, friends, it's just simply because I want to make sure I share some resources back and forth here.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
No.
Thank you. And I think we'll just give it like one more minute to 6:35 and then we'll get started and if 50 more people come in, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
And while we're waiting, I will say the top 10 list of the most banned books just came out too. So it's something worth looking at. And there's a lot of new titles on the list and very old titles. They're not all the same titles we've been seeing, but the numbers are really over the top. Terrible
Oh,
number.
it is dreadful. It was like 4,000, I think, 325 unique titles, and that was only five fewer titles than our ultimate peak at 2023. So, yeah,
It's not going
it's
down.
devastating to think. Yeah.
I would
And not to add, oh, sorry. Yes, Nancy.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, please.
So not one of the better things that comes out. I mean, it's good that we put it out on National Library Week, but were you on the webinar yesterday on all the legislation that they did
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the OIF, the
yeah.
intellectual freedom? They said the good news is Texas, has 2-year sessions, so they're only in session one of the 2 years. The good news is in Texas, they're not in session, the legislature this year, so they can only do so much harm. But Sam had to cancel one of our dates because her legislature in Iowa has been over the top. So,
Yes, they've intentionally connected that I'm a bookmobile librarian and now are trying to write legislation that would no longer allow bookmobiles to be on school property. Um, yeah, so try not to take that one personally because the wheels on the bookmobile bus go round and round and I love it.
I started my career in bookmobile.
Did you really?
Loved it. Loved it.
It's so much fun. And people like intentionally are there, so you get so much love, you know?
Yeah. And these little
Yeah.
kids that wait every time you come for you. Oh my gosh, and they just think it's so wonderful to be in this thing.
Right. And so we contract with some small rural towns, and I'll have the mayors come from like the different towns and come onto the bookmobile and they'll talk shop. And I'm like, ooh, I didn't even have to go to city council to get all the tea. And it's like, this is where civic life is happening, even though we're only stopping for 45 minutes. Yeah, it's cool. Nancy, you and I think we could take this show on the road. We got so many fun library stories we love to share. And I'm thinking in this moment, like I could never, like baby Sam would never have thought I would get to know past ALA president Nancy, Cranich, and get to hang out. That's really one of the most magical things about ALA is that you get to meet your heroes and you get to work together and you realize that you fanned out on library stuff as much as they do.
And once you've been a president, you will always be a past president. So you get to join this club.
I got about 9 more weeks. I'm
I know.
running.
On that note, I'll get started with a little
Yeah.
intro and then Sam, I'll toss it over to you. Thank you everyone for coming today. Just for any new faces who might not have been to a LISSA event before, to introduce LISSA, we're the Library and Information Science Student Association. It's a student chapter of ALA, the American Library Association, which Sam Helmick, who is here, is the current president of. So we're extremely lucky and fortunate to have them with us. To introduce the e-board very quickly, I will be the upcoming president of LISSA. Kayla on the screen is the current president, but she is graduating very, very soon, which we will very much miss her. Nathaniel will be our events coordinator. We're also joined by our outgoing VP Peter, and our current secretary and future VP Bella, and our outgoing webmaster, Michael. So we have a lot of kind of in and outs this semester. I'll bring this up again at the end as we wrap up, but because of our graduating members, we do have openings in our executive board. Just for anyone who is interested, we will throw out a survey if you are that you can, it'll be just a few questions that you can fill out. So I will get into Sam. As I said, Sam is the current ALA president. They served as a member on the ALA executive board and was a past president of the Iowa Library Association. And they've served on many different committees, some of them including the Stonewall Book Awards, the network of the National Library of Medicine, the Young Adult Library Services Association, just to name a few. Of course, there's many other accolades. But Sam is here to both give us a little bit of an introduction to ALA itself, and especially the National ALA Conference. One is obviously upcoming, and so we hope and encourage that this will let people know what that's all about and encourage them, even as students, to go, let alone when hopefully you'll be in your future professions. So I will stop talking for now, although Sam, once you kind of do your thing, I have some moderated questions we could get into. And of course the audience will open it up to Q&A. And if you have any that come up in the meantime, please feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll get to those as well.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia. That was a beautiful introduction. I'm going to try to follow that now. Happy National Library Week, friends, and happy National Library Workers Day. The slogan of National Library Workers Day is libraries work because we do. And I think that whether we're doing that work tonight in community and networking and building and strengthening our community, or if you, like me, just got off of a bookmobile and still kind of have a little bit of that ruler dust road on you, we're all doing the good stuff. And I am honored to get to end my Tuesday by sharing some time with you. So at the top of the way that I would like to introduce the conference, or ALA in general, is to say that I'm here to serve you. I'm your personal librarian. Whether you're a member or not, we don't card at the door. The Office for Intellectual Freedom doesn't card at the door. And if you ever need to reach out to me, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I will tell you that this is an interesting time for me professionally, so it may take me a day or two to get a hold of you. But if you have something that you don't want, I don't know, FOIA requested because you're just trying to have a conversation about advocacy or awareness or libraries, this is where you would find me for that safest conversation. And then lastly, we're colleagues. And so I'm going to give you my cell phone number with the caveat that if you call me, I know it's a library emergency and I got to pull over the bookmobile and we need to chat. If you text me, I know I got a couple days or maybe a couple hours. And I just wanted to make sure that I made that clear at the beginning of the hour so that when I talk about everything that is ALA, you know that you can always reach out to me to the things that I didn't cover while we were together. And I think I'll talk generally about what the American Library Association is. And I'm so lucky to have a past president in my midst. So if I miss notes, Nancy, I'm really kind of hoping you'll help me out here. I might need to tag team this with you, but I have always introduced the American Library Association as both the oldest and the largest professional association for library professionals and information scientists. The hardest probably job that I have had for the last year is saying the word sesquicentennial in public settings because we're about to be 150 years old. And the American Library Association has always been a space where professionals could come together and do peer learning to help each other grow and to serve their communities, whether that was reviewing and writing policy, which has been instrumental. I think about like our freedom to read statement, our library bill of rights, and how we interpret those, and we support each other in terms of meeting rooms, programming, collection development. And I'm, spoiler alert, excited that the ALA Council will be reviewing and hopefully adopting our first artificial intelligence policy at the annual conference. The Library Association, though, is also a community of practice and a community of connections. So one of my entry points into the American Library Association was a national campaign that was called Libraries Transform. And so the Library Association was giving awareness to the American public that libraries are always relevant. Libraries have always been part of the American story. You do not have to buy a $7 caramel macchiato to get free Wi-Fi, friends. Libraries are here. And I love that story because, beloved, less than 20 years ago, I wasn't a library supporter. I wasn't allowed to use the teen space or the adult space, and it really was kind of paltry by the time I was allowed to get there as a young, precocious reader. There wasn't a teen advisory board, and the librarians would kind of side-eye me when I wanted to go see what was upstairs. It wasn't really illustrious. I think it was just some Tiger Beat magazines and some R.L. Stine Fear Streets. And so because I didn't see myself in my library, I did not think libraries were actually relevant or useful because they hadn't been to my story. I even wrote a paper when I was a freshman in college about why I didn't think we needed to build a new library. The English teacher was horrified, clept me through, and they still built the library despite the fact that I got an A+ on that paper. Can you believe it? And I volunteered there when I was an undergraduate, and suddenly there was a teen advisory board, and there was a teen space and a collection dedicated to teens, and they could help choose what went in it. And there were meeting rooms where senior citizens would order pizza and play cards, and I could sit at home in my pajamas and get ebooks and audiobooks. And I just fell in love with what libraries can be if communities are A, aware of what they offer, and B, invest in them and invest in themselves. So getting to tell that story was something the American Library Association offered me. And by the time I was done with that campaign, I was ready to be a library professional. I had changed tracks completely. And there was this wonderful program called Emerging Leaders. And what ALA does is it looks at you and it sees really wonderful qualities about yourself that you might not always see. And apparently they thought leadership was one of mine. And so I worked with a cohort of other professionals across the country through time zones, asynchronously and synchronously, on a social media project for the Young Adult Library Services Association. We made an evergreen calendar of content during our time together, but we also got leadership development, skill stacking, communication tools, and we all were kind of learning how to become managers, directors, leaders in our library spaces. And I still have those lifelong friends, and have been very instrumental to me coming out of my shell and more fully understanding the values of libraries and school and academic spaces where I have never been a practitioner. I leveraged that information that I had learned from the committee and emerging leaders to write my first book through Ronan Littlefield called Social Marketing for Libraries. And I don't mean to age myself, but it did have a chapter on Vine. So it's been a minute, friends. And I used that work to actually become a marketing instructor. And so you can sort of see, looking back now, this thread line of ALA gave me learning and development opportunities that branched out into not only my professional network, but then my professional career. And then I thought, well, I would love to be a chapter counselor and understand more about policy. And incidentally, you become the intellectual freedom chair in my state when you become the chapter counselor and vote on policy at ALA in Iowa. And that was also the first week that a minister took library books out of the library and burnt them on Facebook Live because they had LGBTQIA content. So I immediately was like, what do? I've been about awareness. I've been about storytelling. I don't think of this as advocacy because I've not lived that experience to understand the challenges libraries face. I just want everybody to know they're great. The Office for Intellectual Freedom and the Freedom to Read Foundation were instrumental in not only helping me understand the tenets of intellectual freedom and how important it is to have policies, processes, and procedures to handle First Amendment, like the right of grievance in your government, but also reminding our patrons that the First Amendment right to a guaranteed outcome does not exist in the Constitution, right? But also how to talk to boards. I'm Midwestern, so the best I could do was send like some donuts because we do carbs and say, hey, we'll figure this out together. And I went through some workshops and some frameworks through the Office for Intellectual Freedom to really kind of take a deep dive into intellectual freedom, which prepared me to be the president of my chapter a couple years later when it had the second most library adverse bills in the nation. And those communication skills that I'd gotten through the chapter relation office of ALA and the public libraries transform campaign taught me to have conversations very mindfully and strategically. So when Senate File 496, which wanted to remove age inappropriate materials from all school libraries in my state, was passed, instead of arguing the point, we leaned into our reference skills and what ALA had taught us. And we just asked through a letter of inquiry to the Department of Ed how we would adhere to this and our First Amendment and legal structure in Iowa Code. It was printed in the Des Moines Register, and that's when the 5 largest publishers picked it up and sued my governor. That makes visiting Des Moines kind of awkward, not going to lie. And so that equipped me to thinking that I wanted to continue to support the policymaking body of 56,000 plus members, leaning into ALA and the structure that it has not only developed to bring us to this professional prominence that we have met in the information age, but to also help us understand what we are doing as practitioners in the content age. Because, beloved, I'm hoping you're ready to gasp. Are you ready? I don't think we're in an information age anymore. Y'all were supposed to gasp. What happened? Wait, can we do this again? I don't think we're in an information age anymore. Aw, thank you. You guys are so sweet. Thank you for playing along. I think we're in a content age. I think there's misinformation, doom scrolling, disinformation, generative slop, and we're being distracted. And what you and I do as practitioners, what you and I do as professionals in our networks, is we add curation and context to that content that enables it to become information. That makes us crucial to our society in the 21st century, but it also makes us controversial. And so I think by having communities of practice, we are stronger in numbers. And that's why when something like an executive order seeks to dismantle the Institute for Museum and Library Services, the American Library Association's Public Policy and Awareness Office in Washington, D.C., can work with its headquarters in Chicago to essentially sue the federal government successfully to not only retain those funds, but to return the reduction in force staff to ensure that there's no longer ever going to be a reduction in force and that no more executive orders can be written to dismantle the Institute for Museum and Library Services in this administration. So all of that is to say, if you want to celebrate yourselves, the work you're doing, meet your colleagues that are doing it too and celebrate them, find lifelong friends. And really just enjoy meaningful projects that not only help move the association forward, but instrumentally move the field forward. You're going to be able to do that 2 ways. My job as the president of the American Library Association is to remind you that you're doing that every day right now. Even if you're having a C+ day, you are contributing to public good. We're in the crucible because we contribute to public good and what we do matters. So please, if you remember nothing else from my rambles here tonight, please know that you're enough and that what you're doing matters. But the second way you can do that, and I find it very joyful, is to join your professional networks, like NYLA, the New York Library Association, ALA, the American Library Association. Dip your toes into IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations, and meet your colleagues around the nation and the globe, because they're the folks who are going to be able to bounce ideas with you and have no skin in the game when they live in a different time zone. These are the folks who will help you when you need a letter of reference for that next job and you aren't quite prepared to tell your home institution, but you have other people in prominent positions that can kind of boost that signal. But then these are also the people who, like the president of the Indiana Library Federation, she texts me when she goes to the Capitol to fight for her libraries. And I tell her, are you hydrating? Because that's my way of saying I love you. And some days when it's really long, I say, let me Uber eat you a sandwich, because this is the work we have to do together in the times that we face. And so I'm going to put in the chat where we're going to meet. It's going to be at the last week of June in Chicago. And what I love about it is we will be celebrating our sesquicentennial. For those playing at home, I've said it successfully twice, but that's probably it. I've peaked. And what I really also love is there's going to be some really fun opportunities to not only celebrate with each other, but get some flavors of Chicago. I'm hearing that some local artists are going to come in to write personal poems for members, and we're going to get some dancing and some good food in. I'm hearing about some extra tickets to the Obama Library opening and special tours. And I'm going to be cheerfully handing the torch to our President-elect Maria McCauley, who is the Cambridge Public Library Director, and is going to continue to support the work of our new executive director, Dan Montgomery, as we write the next 150 years. So you have been very generous with your time, but I get excited and then I'm very boring at parties, Olivia. Are we ready for questions?
I think we so are, and I would not describe all of that as boring. I would describe that as extremely interesting and actually very heartening. Like Nancy mentioned at the beginning, it's nice to have this week to like hear good news and celebrate what we're doing. And I feel like that was the sense that I got as well. So thank you for that. Um,
Well, the power of libraries is that 20 years later, I can change my mind. Anybody can. So we can get people excited about libraries. And I think many are. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
100% agree. No, just wanted to remind the audience, I'm going to go through just some discussion questions that I have, but any that you may have for Sam about ALA in general, the conference, any of their background that they mentioned, just throw it in the chat or we'll kind of get to a Q&A and you can raise your hand. So Sam, just a kind of a general opening question. Could you just maybe dive into a little bit more about what ALA can actually be used for and why people should want to get involved?
Absolutely. So I would say, okay, I'm going to give you my value proposition and then I'm going to spread it out to like the greater value proposition for me. As a person who's been working in the intellectual freedom and advocacy space, as a person who sees over 4,000 unique titles still being challenged or banned in our country, I think about the fact that the American Library Association is the singular firewall between our library communities and our profession and pernicious legislation. And I want to remind folks that this is a culture war, but it's disguising or hiding the knowledge of the class war. Like, this is a systematic dismantling of public institutions that offer opportunity and equity to hope, right? Because it's always followed up by defunding the libraries or voucher programs for schools instead of public resources going into public services. And so I think about the American Library Association flashing a light bulb or a flashlight onto digital equity, broadband services, working with the FCC directly to make sure we can get those mobile hotspot grants, reminding the American public that they have to sign those LSTA letters and make sure that they support not only the Institute for Museum and Library Services, but then congressionally mandate the funds for it to operate. So I think of it as a firewall. I do think of it as a lot of advocacy work. I think it used to be awareness work, but the environment we find ourselves in has made it advocacy, right? I don't think that's what we originally started out to be. But then it's a professional network where I have access to resources, and it doesn't matter what part of the discipline I'm in. We have the American Association for School Librarians. We have the Public Library Association. We have the American College and Research Libraries Association. We have the Young Adult Library Services Association. So wherever you fit in the discipline, there's a space under the ALA umbrella for you that has its own like publications, its own conference, its own webinars and learning services. And I think that that's important because the deep knowledge of our profession, as well as the intersectionality of it, is actually its overall strength. So I think it's just access to resources and recognizing that I've been out of graduate school for like 20 years. And I think for 20 years, I've been saying, I wish that this had been a course because the rapidity of our field, we are growing at the pace of our society. And it's just very difficult to find and saturate yourself in a syllabus that's going to address how do you administer Narcan? What's going to happen when you're a manager, but you have 5 different like generations that you're serving as a leader? Like, some of these things are just so tangential to core librarianship to ensure that we get the core librarianship in. There are other pieces that I think need to come later. And so ALA to me is one of the one-stop shops where I can find information on management and I can find information on, so your library is geothermal and there's a leak in the glycol, what do you do? Or we don't know what to do with AI. And we're trying to figure this out together because, you have the gambit of libraries that have embraced it with both arms and libraries where we're not even assisting patrons with those tools right now, which becomes almost an intellectual freedom issue. And so when you get deeper and deeper into the philosophy of our field, I think that you need a community of practice to lean into and to bounce ideas off of. And then As a person who homeschooled, as a person who went to graduate school virtually while I was actually already a manager in my home library, it's a network that I didn't have. Like I literally got out of graduate school without my network, and we just can't grow professionally if we're not in a community of practice with our peers and also become, seeking out mentors. I have no idea what I would do without wonderful people like Sarah Dallas, who was the recent director of the Southern Adirondack system. We served on the board together, and if I have needs now, she'll still let me like take time. And sometimes that's, I need your advice on this policy. Sometimes it's I just want a pity party, and I was wondering if you'd set the timer for 5 minutes and just hear me out. And she sets the timer and keeps me honest on it, and she hears me out. And you need people like that in your life if you're going to be one of the public faces of government, of education, be one of the most trusted and needed, but be vilified at the same time in this really weird timeline we find ourselves in. Does that honor your question, though, Olivia?
More than I could have ever dreamed.
Ah,
Um, I love that you also described ALA as yeah, like a organized firewall. It just kind of jogged my memory. I went to the International Children's Book Fair in Bologna last week. It
yeah.
it was amazing, by the way.
Okay.
There's a class at Rutgers if anyone's interested that you get to do it. But our professor Mark Aronson and a couple other people did a panel on like censorship and banned books, like you brought up. And one of Professor Aronson's main points was that it no longer is like individual people, like one mom or dad with an issue. It's these really organized groups that are doing campaigns, and there's not one book, the list of like 800. And I think that speaks to how important it is for us to be organized and strong and to have that firewall to kind of battle that against. So I thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, it just reminded me of that. It was such a great panel. And an event in general. Again, speaking to like making connections and it kind of like gives you that fire of like being in the field. I got to meet Linda Bondestam, who I was so excited to meet. She's just a amazing illustrator from Finland. Um,
That's awesome.
anyway, I digress. Um, so obviously there is the ALA has memberships as well as student memberships, which everyone will I'll throw a link into in the chat later. But are there any other ways that students or maybe very like early career professionals just graduated, you'd recommend like ways to get involved in ALAs, like specific things they should do? I'd recommend one of them,
Oh,
LISSA events.
yes. So the new members roundtable to me is one of the most easiest access points into the American Library Association, because it's sort of like there's this giant organization that's the umbrella of multiple other organizations. What do, right? And so I love the new members roundtable because of their orientation of the vast landscape that is ALA, but also their grand opportunities for membership and attending conferences. In fact, I don't think I could have gone to a conference had I not been able to get it through a grant through either like my state association, my university with like a student slash like national membership piece, or through those grants. And then I think just also like putting your voice out there and recognizing that an organization is only as strong as its members, and we need you. We need you. I mean, I'm the second youngest library association president. And what that shows to you is that ALA has a place for anybody who's willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work, right? Because all of us bring different perspectives and experiences. And so I would recommend looking at the new members roundtable, but also I would just recommend like maybe throwing in a poster session, right? Getting a discount on the attendance because you're willing to contribute to the learning experience of each other. Throwing in proposals for things like CORE, which is our leadership essentially association under the umbrella of ALA. And then also just reaching out to members on the executive board, on council that are maybe chairs of our different roundtables, and just asking them for a piece of their mind and their experience. Some of the best conversations I've ever had was just cold calling or like cold emailing people and being like, hey, I'm this librarian in Iowa and I really like what you do. And if you have a minute to like have the Zoom tea, I would love to spill the tea on what you do and how you succeeded. And I actually offered it to intern or like audit the public policy committee, right? I mean, the policy monitoring committee of ALA, which is like we look at all the policies for all the roundtables and all of council and everything. And they were like, oh, we won't let you intern and observe. You're in the game. You're in the deep end of the pool now. And the history of ALA, as well as the ability to really deep dive into policy as a manager now, all happened because I simply just said, hey, I'd be willing to volunteer, and I directly emailed a chair, and they're like, we're gonna get you in. We're gonna fast track you past that application. So I hope that's useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially the new members roundtable, I think is a really interesting way to get more involved. Um, another I'll have a few more questions, but again, I'll audience, please feel free. I won't take up the whole time. Um, so focusing a little bit more on the upcoming conference, what is like the main goal or focus of this year's conference to give people a little more info about it?
Right. So the American Library Association has core values, which were actually recently updated by the American Library Association's Council. And a few of those are probably going to be some of the greatest hits that you're aware of, but like intellectual freedom, privacy, access. But a couple of our other core values are public good, sustainability, right? And so these tracks will focus on those core values. I think I counted somewhere in the ballpark of 16 sessions on artificial intelligence. I think I saw about 20 sessions on equity and librarianship and another like 15 on diversity. And then I think everything is always trying to have like an underline of inclusion. So what you're going to see here is a smattering of sessions that are covering the topics that are most salient or relevant according to our members and their surveys that they gave us to this day. And what I like about it is that it's always practice in action, right? So it's not me coming and saying, well, we wrote this policy and I assembled as president, like practically the Manhattan Project of awesome experts, and now I'm going to tell you about AI. It's folks who are actually doing the work in their libraries and can give you lived examples. And so what I like about that is the sessions are great. The conversations after the sessions and the follow-up emails and the sharing each other's knowledge, even better. And so I think the focus, if I were a new member coming into my first conference or my first ALA conference, I'd give you 5 things. Can I give you like my 5 hacks?
Please.
You gotta have a water bottle, beloved. I gotta keep you hydrated. This is a marathon, not a sprint. These conference halls are long, y'all. So water bottle, comfy shoes. You want to have your own business card. It does not matter if you actually have a position now. You could just have like a connection media, social media, networking card. Your name, some of the positions that you've held, perhaps like in graduate school, or a title you've held professionally, and just where you like people to connect with you. And then you want to make sure that you can write on those, because what happens is we all get into this love fest at ALA and we just start handing out cards to each other. And then it's like, I remembered I wanted to talk to Olivia, but was it about bookmobiles or was it about Koha? Right. And so we want to make sure that we're like feeding and delivering each other and following up on those things. And then the second thing is, I actually like write out a spreadsheet schedule. Like I love the scheduler, don't get me wrong, but for 10 years I've gone into like Google Sheets and I've had like layers of here's my top. And if those are full or if I'm just not feeling it, here is my second layer of things that I want to do. And I aim high, but then achieve realistically. So those are the 5 tips I'd give. Nancy, your hand was up. Do you have any good ones?
I was just agreeing that I've done the matrix. The person who worked for when I was on the Intellectual Freedom Committee,
Mm-hmm.
he developed a matrix 25 years ago, and I'm still using it. It's one page, it's just the best. I'm sure
Yes.
I could do a better job, but I was just working on it last night. So, yeah.
Look
So,
at
but
us.
can I say a few other things that you want to do?
Yeah.
So, we have amazing speakers. It's just like where you were at the International Book Fest, whatever, the in Bologna. That our opening general speaker is Rachel Maddow, who some of us have tried to get for years, hoping we get. But we have authors and in the exhibits, people signing books the whole time that the conference is going. They have a stage, they even have cooking demonstrations and all kinds of things. You can just be in the exhibits all day and have yourself a festival. I mean, it's just amazing. And all these people come. And so another wonderful thing about ALA to know about is our book awards. And it's our members that actually, you know, read these materials or review videos or all these different awards we give. And our awards, particularly for young people, are, the Academy Awards. They are the biggest honor people get. So the Youth Book Awards will have their big event. Is it on Sunday night still, or did they move it?
It's still on Sunday nights, the Caldecott, and like I'm still trying to find my fancy outfit because it is totally the Oscars of ALA.
It is like it's like going to the fashion show of the Academy Awards. I mean, people get really dressed up, but it brings together the entire children's literature field. Authors, publishers, illustrators, librarians. It is amazing. And even though I didn't do youth services, it was like the very favorite thing I did in all the speeches I gave. Because when you're president, you're given a speech like every 20 minutes. I mean, you're going here, you're going there. It is truly remarkable. I was president-elect in Chicago. So
Were you
Chicago is
really?
a great city, but the convention center is way down. And so getting between, they had to have a car for you to drive you around because you can't get everywhere. And it's a big conference. I mean, we'll have maybe, hopefully, 15 to 20,000. My conference, when I was ALA president, we were bigger. My annual conference was in San Francisco. I think we broke the record. We had 30,000.
That's yeah.
Remarkable.
And these are beautiful memories, right? Because like we have Caldecott and we have Stonewall. And so I remember the last time we were in San Francisco, the National Marriage Equality Act was just coming through the
Oh, it was
Supreme Court.
amazing.
We were part of the parade, and some of the members who had been on the Stonewall Book Awards held up their choice of the honor books in the parade, and I just sort of thought, okay, this is peak ALA for me. It will never get more unique or interesting. And honestly, when I think about that moment and how I felt that we contributed to something bigger, that is as much of a high for me as an attendee as anything has been for me as president, because you realize that as colleagues, we're changing an author's life, an illustrator's life, and so many children who are always going in to look for those little stickers on the cover, and it's
And the goal.
it's humbling. Yeah, it's
So when
humbling.
we were in San Francisco that time, the decision came down from the Supreme Court on gay marriage. And the woman, not gay marriage, was it gay marriage?
I thought it was. Yeah.
The woman who was the attorney was our keynote speaker, Nancy Pelosi. If you
That's
knew her, it was just spectacular. And Nancy Pelosi was late. Were you there for that conference? Nancy Pelosi was late.
was my
Got stuck
first
in
conference.
traffic. And
Yeah.
it ended up being wonderful. So, and she was such, she grew up in Baltimore. I lived in Baltimore. Her father was my mayor when I was a little kid. She talked about, the Enoch Pratt Public Library, which was the library that Carla
Dr.
Hayden
Hayden.
led
Yeah.
before she became the Librarian of Congress. And Carla got the award that year for the work they did in Baltimore to keep the libraries open during was it the George Floyd or no, it was one of,
Trayvon Martin, I think. Yeah.
right, Trayvon Martin. She came to Rutgers to speak about it before she was in
What?
Congress, right? We had her and the guy from St. Louis. What was the name of the Ferguson?
Oh,
They
I,
came together and we have the recordings. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
remember.
these are the
Yeah.
kinds of people you see when you go to these conferences, and you will be in awe. I mean, were you there when Wes Moore spoke before he
Hmm.
was the governor about
Yes.
the two Wes Moore's book? I mean, these people, they come and they speak, and
Yeah.
they become so accessible. And who did you interview that was so amazing last year?
Oh, yeah. Who was? Oh, my goodness, friends. He's a wonderful comedian. He was used to be on The Daily Show. Oh,
Trevor,
oh no.
Trevor
He
Noah?
It wasn't
No.
Trevor Noah, but he was there the year before. I'm going to think of it because I know who else hasn't been announced for ALA Annual, and you were going to lose it. And I am struggling so hard not to let it out right now because I think it's going to come out at the end of National Library Week. But
I
there's a
think I know.
big name that I'm like losing my. I'm like my jimmies are rustled. I'm losing it. Yes. And can I just say that that can feel intimidating to some of us, but please don't let it. If I can just tell one more anecdotal story, I actually lost the ALA election, and unfortunately, my colleague had to step down, and the board had to go through an appointment process, and council voted me in. And what that taught me was not every single volunteer appointment will be yours, not every single library proposal for annual conference will be yours, but everything that you do teaches you about the next step you're about to make. No intellectual pursuit ever is wasted. And it built a wonderful relationship for me. Robert Newland is the acting librarian of Congress, and I think probably the only federal department head in our history currently that said no to this current administration. He and I became friends because he has run and not won twice. So he told me that I actually hadn't met his status yet. And we became really good friends over the fact that when you try to do something, that's the valor. When you go and you network with people and you put yourselves out there, that's the valor. And what I have found is that more often than not, even when I'm having like shock that this person is talking to me, that Nancy's inviting me to talk to her class, everybody is friendly and kind and supportive. In fact, just yesterday I was on the radio and he said, "Good job." And he just shot me an email and I'm like, the acting librarian of Congress knows me and my email. And he has known me for 5 years, but it's still like this feeling of, folks, we are a community of practice.
And we
And we
are
need,
a family. That's,
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is what we used to be twice a year, but now it's just once a year. But
Yeah.
it's really like a family reunion.
Yeah.
And you will build over, getting involved. And it could be New Jersey Library Association, New York Library Association, whatever. And all those people come together at the American Library Association. And Sam, you were just in Minneapolis at PLA. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, being in Minneapolis this spring was particularly poignant, I would assume.
Right. So I think a few things to think about there is like we have a president for the Public Library Association. Her name is Dr. Brandy McNeil, and they have an executive board. So as the American Library Association president, my job, and I'm a public librarian, so it's close to the heart. I'm thinking, what do we do here? And that's a moment where you lean in and you support each other. And like librarians, we listen to our communities and ask what they want. And we had librarians in Minneapolis and Minnesota say, please come and support us. The city said, please come and support us. We were the first conference to go back to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And even like decades later, they still will like find you in the hotel as soon as you come to town. And they're like, "Are you here for ALA? We love you all. Thank you for helping us rebuild our city after Hurricane Katrina." And so you realize that these movements are not only a representation of celebrating each other and coming together, but we are actually demonstrating to the American public in metropolis spaces what libraries are doing and how this is a science. And so it was really edifying and joyful to see how the community has come together. And it was really nice to be able to be there and support them in that time.
And generally, when we go to any city, like when we're Philly, the mayor comes, sometimes the governor comes, the library director comes as part of the opening general session. I mean, you just feel so connected to the place you're going. And we do have a day of service that we started after Katrina, that we still do, that just got announced for Chicago. And so, there's just so many ways that you can connect. And if you haven't been to Chicago, Chicago is such a great city. It's not only the home of the American Library Association, but it is just a wonderfully civic place. Fabulous museums, fabulous parks. It's just full of life. So, being there is just spectacular. Are they having the what's it called? The Taste of Chicago
I
while
don't
we're
know if they're doing that, but the Freedom to Read Foundation are going to have White Sox tickets, and a whole bunch of like intellectual freedom wonks are going to go see the White Sox. I would love to be there, but I'm busy and Cubbies the whole time. Sorry, Cubbies all the way. They just aren't playing in town that week, and so I'm informally protesting. But yeah, there will be a whole bunch of events, and if you hop on to Connect or you hop on to like the ALA think tank space, a lot of people will have like informal pop ups that are absolutely wonderful. And you don't have to be a member of these things. Come and try it. The Rainbow Roundtable always has a wonderful like event at a local bar. Usually we have one with dueling pianos or singing, and I promise not to sing if you come.
And the opening, the Obama Presidential Library has a branch of the Chicago Public Library in it. And I've been told we're going to have a special event there. It's opening June 15th. It is impossible to get tickets, but they're going to have an event specially for us. And so it's just spectacular. When we were in Chicago 3 years ago, the head of the library came and with the head of the Chicago Public Library and forget who else, did a program about what the library was going to be like, and it should be just incredible. And it's down at the University of Chicago campus, which has another fabulous array of libraries, as well as a wonderful Frank Lloyd Wright House right on the campus. And there's so much to do.
I'm going to sneak off and see the Mansueto again. I haven't gone and visited that since I was in graduate school, and I know it was amazing like 20 years ago, so I'm going to go back. Um,
The
yeah, it's going to be
aquarium,
amazing.
the
Yeah.
science museum. I mean, and it's all, it's Chicago. It's not the convention center is not right downtown, but in the downtown area, there's a whole lot of museums and other things to do that are all near each other, or near enough if you bring your sneakers.
So if you have questions, if I can be supportive, if anybody would like to see what my spreadsheets looked like over the years, where I have like the location, the time, the and notes, let me know how I can support you because I know you all are commiserate professionals and don't need help navigating a conference, but if we can like engage and level that experience up so that you can leverage as much out of that experience as possible, I think that's what we're all here to do as colleagues.
Thank you so much, Sam, and also Nancy for all of that
I know.
amazing story. It's funny, one of my questions was going to be, what was your most memorable ALA conference? Got it. That San
Mhm.
Francisco one really sounded amazing. Um, I'll while we, just to be respectful of time, is there anyone in the audience with questions or comments or anything for Sam? Feel free to throw it in the chat or just unmute or raise your hand or whatever you would like.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi. Hi, Sam. So could you post your LinkedIn if you have one into the chat?
Oh,
Also, I
sure.
didn't hear the fifth hack. I know it was water bottle, comfy shoes, own business card, write out a spreadsheet or planning matrix and
Oh, and you definitely want to have cards, even if you kind of like have them printed in the library or you just kind of like have them fast printed. I think just making sure you have a card present so you can write notes on the back and email people and follow up with conversations is the best because you wouldn't believe how many people do not do that. And I've made some of the best connections with folks by just simply saying like I really liked what you said. You asked me a question at a panel or you presented this at a panel and could you tell me more? And they're like, here's all of my work. Please feel free to use it for your library. Or please, keep in touch and I'd like to mentor you before you're done with graduate school. It's pretty awesome.
thank you.
Oh, it was nice to meet you too, Rebecca. I
Thank
hope you have a good night.
you. Anyone else, folks, with any questions or comments?
Hi, Nathaniel. I see your hand up.
Unmute.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying one sec. So this was great. Um, with that said, I actually was at NJLA this past year and saw Amanda Jones and Michael Threed's talk. With that said, historically speaking, like in pop culture, libraries and librarians have had a bad rap. Do you think, like with things like the modern documentary, The Librarians, things are turning up better for us?
I totally feel you because, like, Iowa librarians, especially, like, if I can just go here for a minute, has everybody heard of the Music Man? and she had Balzac in the collection. So that is a wonderful musical that's about a music man who comes in to create a boys band, and he's kind of a shy. He like steals money and he was going to just leave town, but he falls in love with the local librarian, and she's scandalous because she has Shakespeare and Balzac on the shelves, and the town are like, oh, and I love that. That was what I grew up thinking about librarians, Nathaniel. And then I love to tell people about Field of Dreams. Has anybody ever seen the film Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner? I love to tell folks that that's actually a story about a banned book conversation taking place in the school gymnasium, and there's also just a little baseball in there. But to your point, you're right. Like historically, librarians have been kind of considered, I think, quiet and composed and maybe almost historically gatekeepers. And I think the work of many decades and the work of awareness campaigns from the American Library Association and the like is to remind folks of two things. Like, the library is yours. In most cases, whether it's school, academic, or public, public's our middle name, right? In some way or another. And that you and I are thought partners. You and I were always here to thought partner and support and resource and direct people towards their goals. And I think that Amanda Jones' story, Michael Three's story, your story, our stories are demonstrating that more and more and more. And so I ran on the campaign, Our Stories Are Worth Sharing. And I really just wanted to impress upon the American people that our value has been undisputed since the beginning. But, and then I'll get off the soapbox, when water runs and the road doesn't have potholes, nobody notices them. Libraries are effective and efficient, which is why we're constantly being asked to do more with same or less. And so I think we have to tell stories in order to advocate for more resources and more, policies that are really strong for our communities, because with stories comes understanding, and with understanding comes support. Does that honor your question, Nathaniel?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a Mets fan, so I know torture like Cubs fans have too.
Oh, the struggle is real, right? It's a very
Yeah.
unrequited love story. I also watch the Bears beat the Vikings once a year, so I'm happy to have a happy memory coming from Chicago here very soon. All right.
They'll tell you a Chicago Bear story. I was going to an ALA to downtown to AL, there was some meeting at
Yeah.
ALA in Chicago, and I got in one of those vans they have from the airport, and they were playing. The Bears were playing, and it took me longer to get downtown than it took me to get to Chicago flying, because everybody goes crazy when, and I think it was Chicago versus Green Bay, which is the big rivalry too. When there's a game in Chicago, the whole city turns out. So, but you'll feel that way at an
I was
LA.
stuck in O'Hare. I was stuck in O'Hare in 2016, right after the Cubs won the World Series, and
Oh
they
my
just
God.
kept playing Queen's "We Are the Champions" on repeat. And I didn't mind it for the first 4 hours. Oh, I hope that you all will feel welcome to hop into my inbox or send me a text if I can ever be useful. And thank you for knowing precisely what's going on with the field and running towards it to contribute to it. I think of Mr. Rogers' Look for the Helpers. And I didn't know that this was our chapter when I ran into it. So I really admire the vision and the bravery of you all. And I'm really glad to add you to community.
Thank you so much, Sam, for being here and for your wonderful insight and resources and I just feel like we were able to learn so much in such a short amount of time. Folks, I'm just gonna pop a couple things in the chat. So one of them is the ALA does have a student membership, which is a little bit less expensive. I joined and you get so many resources and access to so many things. So I'd recommend. I'm also going to put in here the LISSA link tree that has links to our Instagram and other socials. It's also where we put all of the registrations for our events, so you can keep up to date. And like we mentioned earlier, we have a few of our e-board graduating this semester, so we have some positions open. It's an amazing way to get involved. It's not super high commitment, so you wouldn't have to worry about balancing on top of classes. And oh, I'm sorry, that's my dog. Ignore her. And it's a really good touch point for the program. So we'll email that as well. Kayla, anything else you want to add?
No, I you think you've gotten it all. Thank you so much, Olivia.
One
Great
more
job.
thing.
Oh, Nancy had something.
A generous donor allowed for any students from library schools to become members of the Freedom to Read Foundation for free. I strongly urge you to join now, and be and use that free membership. The Freedom to Read Foundation is our legal arm. It's a separate organization, but it's under ALA's umbrella, as Sam calls it. And it has done such amazing work in fighting for us in the legal arena. And so do join and take my intellectual freedom class in the fall so you can get even more interested in these issues and all the policies and ways that we look at these issues thanks to the work of our members in ALA, people like Sam and those of us who have worked so hard to create the standards, the policies, the best books, the not just the banned books, but the best books. And that's what we stand for, is really lifting people up.
I put that membership link there so you all can be free members by tonight.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you again, Sam. Thanks everyone for attending, and hopefully we'll see you in more LISSA events in the future and maybe at ALA conferences in the future. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's such fun having you. Thank you.
My absolute joy. I'm glad I got to see you all. I'll see you in Chicago. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Sam.